Welcome, everybody. You are back here with us, Digital Marketing Wednesday. We took last week off, and it almost felt a little bit weird, Ben and I were talking about. So we're now on a bi-weekly rhythm with you guys, and excited to talk with you today about really two big concepts that Ben and I are going to each dig deep in the weeds on. The first is looking at the automation of lead follow-up. We get a lot of questions from you guys about systems to use and how to do it and what the drips and the touches look like to really maximize lead conversion. And then off of that, we'll build in a little bit on the customization and different things that you could dangle out in front of people to get more of a response from all those leads that you're generating. Then we're going to change gears. We're going to talk about getting more reviews and how to utilize those reviews for social proof and other additional marketing aspects. So we're pumped to have you here with us today. And along the way, if you have questions or comments, be sure to drop them in the notes below, and I'll monitor those, and we'll do our best to tackle them by the end of the session. So Ben, what's up in your world these days?
Just everything's automatic. No, I'm kidding. That's just the corny lead into automation. It's great, man. Just rocking and rolling. Another beautiful Wednesday.
Nice. Well, let's go ahead and dig in and talk a little bit. I know you guys do a great job of lead follow-up on your team. I know you've done a lot of effort in building out automated workflows. So maybe start with what do you see as the biggest gaps or opportunities for improvement in that automation of lead follow-up? And then we'll kind of toss the ball back and forth a little bit on this.
Absolutely. So lead follow-up in general, or we think about automation in general, right? To me, automation is saving time by planning ahead. So, and that's one you can write down in your notes, saving time by planning ahead. That's all automation is. You're thinking about the variables along the road. And the key here, and I know you guys have never heard me say this before, so get ready for this. The question you have to ask is, what is the end goal of this interaction? And I know Bill's chuckling because I ask him that all the time, but what's the end goal of this interaction? And you need to think about this in terms of your lead follow-up. So what's our end goal? And here's where I think a lot of agents kind of misstep, right? This is something we talk about a lot. The misstep here is the end goal in their mind is to sell that person a house the first time they talk to them. That is not the goal of lead follow-up. The number one job as an agent or anybody trying to automate anything in lead follow-up, your number one job, write this down and highlight it, is to get a response. You need them to respond to you before you can do anything else. So the biggest gap that I see with agents right now is they prime everything they do in their lead follow-up to get a sale rather than building that relationship to get a response, to get that trust built, to move them down a specific path or a buying behavior. And the funny part is, as much as we try to make ourselves feel really special and different, most of the time humans react the same way in the same manner. And when it comes to home buying, there's processes in place. There's rhythms in place for home buyers. They have a certain amount of time they spend searching for homes. They have a certain amount of time they spend browsing on the web, and then they have a very specific time frame. They contact an agent, and from there we have it down to I know, Bill, is something we track at the coaching company is the buyer days on market, right? We know how long they search for homes even. So all of this stuff is predictable. It's just, are you doing the right kind of conversation at the right time? So for example, it's and I know we like to use the example of, it's like going to a bar and asking someone to go home with you. Sorry, we're not in church today, guys, but it's asking someone to go home with you the first time you ever meet them, the first sentence out of your mouth. That's what happens on these drip campaigns a lot of times with people. So when it comes to lead conversion, your number one job is to get a response out of people. And we talk about the three things in lead conversion. That it needs to be fast, right? That's your number one thing. So when I think of automation, the word that comes to mind is connected. Are all of your systems connected in the world, in your world? Does everything talk to it? Does your CRM talk to your lead source? Does it talk to your email newsletter? Does it talk to your mail outs? Does it talk to whatever it needs to be connected to? And then from there, customize. There's a lot of different ways to customize this stuff too. Some cool things you can do on that end. And then again, just a reminder, generating a response. All of this is geared towards generating a response. So Bill, that was a really long answer to the number one thing. The biggest gap that I see when it comes to automation is that agents are not working to generate that response from potential leads or inbound prospects.
Sure. No, I think it's a good precursor for digging in on this, because this is such a common question. Is we run into people who are doing a great job of generating leads, and then they're super frustrated by low conversion rate, or they start doing some of the things that you and I've been talking about, or that you taught in the digital marketing course, and the top of the funnel looks great and the bottom of the funnel looks abysmal. And it's all the stuff that's in between on that funnel. So let's do this for just a second, because you hit on a key point about how the messaging matching where the person is or where the lead is in the timeline. And the thing being getting that response. And I'm always thinking about what's the next logical step for that person. And how do I offer them something that is that next logical step? It was funny you said, I was sitting here thinking to myself, am I going to tell the story about the metaphor of sitting down next to someone at the bar and asking if they want to go home? And you did, so now I'm not in trouble. And so Debbie's going to get mad at you, not at me.
There we go.
Yeah. So anyway, now we're here and we're saying, let's talk about timelines. Okay. So someone starts their home search online, approximately how far out from when they're actually going to purchase? Ballpark.
Ballpark, I know NAR statistics on this say 10 weeks. Typically, it's how far out they start that search. So really, that's before they contact an agent. That's not before they purchase a home. That's before they contact an agent. They're browsing, or just kind of looking at home 10 weeks in advance. It can be shorter time frames, can be longer, really dependent on their motivation and what's causing them to move. But time frame wise, typically 10 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So they start looking 10 weeks out. I think this is important for the folks at home to make in their notes, because if they're just starting to look 10 weeks out and we're closing hard for appointment, then what we're offering them doesn't match where they are in the process. So now time is elapsing and they are approximately how far out before they raise their hand or contact a real estate agent? Ballpark.
Yeah. So typically after they're browsing, they start that 10-week period, usually weeks 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there, you'll see them start raising their hand. That's where you'll see signups happen. Sometimes it can be earlier, sometimes later, but typically in that process, before they commit to somebody, they're usually browsing, I would say, at least a month in advance before they actually go hardline commit. Or if we're still using the dating analogy, if they start going steady with somebody to buy a house.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Pulling from the lexicon of my grandparents. Yes. So now 4 to 6 weeks out, they're raising their hand, they're engaging with an agent. They're still 4 to 6 weeks out though. So us being mindful that our messaging is not necessarily buy this house, buy this house, buy this house. So let's talk a little bit about the calibration of timeline, because this is important in the verbiage that we use. And I want to come back to talking about automation. So in the buyer skills course that Debbie and I created, that I'll put a link in the comments for you guys, we talk about calibration of timeline around the perfect home script. So someone comes in and we're asking them the question, ideally, and write that word in your notes and underline it, ideally, when would you buy your next home? And we're waiting on that response from the buyer to determine how far out they are and looking to calibrate that by dangling the perfect home in front of them. And for that person who's saying that they're farther out, we're making sure that our message is continuing to match them. So Ben, tell me a little bit about how you guys go about automating the process as people are coming in, and maybe a couple of your favorite drips or scripts that you guys use that the folks at home could implement.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, automation, I like to think about personalization or customization. How can I add that in? I've gotten pretty good. And part of it, I think, is because I spend so much time in technology and looking at all this stuff. I can really sniff out if something's automated or not. I also believe that people are becoming more attuned to automated messages. So you'll know if you get a text that was sent from a system versus sent from a person, right? There are little tells that you'll see in there, certain verbiage that just sounds like someone wrote it on a piece of paper versus them saying it. So whenever I'm writing my follow-up plans, I'm always saying them out loud, because if you think about it, most people, although I did read a study later that some people don't have an internal monologue, which I think is crazy because I'm always talking to myself, but most people read in their heads, right? So you have to think about whatever you write on that paper, they're reading that in their mind. So if it sounds funky because you wrote it to be read and not to be spoken, it sounds more robotic. So part of the secret is sit there every time you write out a response plan, read it out loud, like verbally say it out loud. And that'll bring authenticity to it. The other side of this too is, while you want to be professional in everything you're doing, it's okay to let your authentic voice come through a little bit. Some of our best responses, Bill's seen some of our plans that we have, some of our best responses come from just me being weird. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, how you can really customize your drip plans on weird things. And you have to remember, we're trying to stand out in a sea of noise. So part of this is the way you stand out is pattern interrupts. So I'm always thinking of how can I make this weird? How can I make this offbeat? How can I make them remember me? So that's the big piece you have to think about is how can I be memorable? So a couple ways that you can work customization in, again, without, going the great lengths of handwriting all this stuff by yourself, using something, if you have a CRM, using something called merge fields, for example. The most powerful word that you can ever use when talking to someone is their name. And what you want to do with a merge field and if you're writing a text back to someone, say Bill signs up on my website and my first response is, I'm trying to get in touch with him. I don't like putting their name at the very beginning of the sentence. I'll actually put it directly in the middle of the sentence and work my response around that, my auto drip plan around that word. And the merge field, what the beauty of that is it will automatically take the data that person is providing you and customize it to that person. So now it feels personalized, it feels customized because I'm mirroring that person by giving them their name back, which again is, according to Dale Carnegie, the most sweetest sounding word on earth is your own name. So use that data wherever you have it. The other little trick I always work this in is I make mistakes intentionally. So I always think about when somebody's texting me back and they're really, ferociously texting me on their phone, they make mistakes, right? They misspell something. There's a comma where it shouldn't be. There's different words in different places. So we intentionally build mistakes into our plan because it looks more human. Again, authenticity here, it looks more human. And the last part is, again, just going back to that, make yourself memorable. I always think of Chris Voss talks about it in his negotiation course in the masterclass. It talks about mirroring people. So again, using those merge fields, if your CRM you're using is a little bit more robust, they may have multiple merge fields built out. So then you can actually drop in things that they've been looking at property-wise or other data they've given you. Again, we're personalizing and customizing, no extra work on my end. We're just building that into the platform itself. So Those are some of my favorite things that we enjoy doing on that. I'll tell you long-term, Bill, on this too, and we can dig more into this in a minute, but long-term, you want to make sure your drips are long-term. Again, a 10-week window, and then beyond that, 45 days to find a house, and you have 45-day closing. And then after that, you want them to continue to be a client. You have to think long-term when you think about your drip plans. One thing I like to do every year is I like to look up all the weird holidays and then put scripts and put text around that automatically go out to my database. And we make them funny too. So you can take these type of texts and the level 1, tier 1 access to this. For example, one coming up is June 2nd, National Donut Day. So you can just send out a text with a little donut emoji saying Happy Donut Day. Hope you have a great day. If you guys want anything to know about real estate, contact us, something along those lines, like real cheesy, right? And it gets a good response because it's offbeat and most agents are saying Happy July 4th while we're talking about donuts. The second way you can plus this, right? You could say Happy Donut Day. Here's a link to our Facebook page. Post a picture of your favorite police officer so that we can buy them a box of donuts. Boom. Now they're going offline to my Facebook page and they're going to post a picture and it's all in good fun. So they appreciate it, but it's also recognizing first responders, things of that nature. There's National Dog Day. There's National Joke Day. You can do a lot of stuff with offbeat holidays, build that in, and it's weird enough that people will respond to you. So we build all that into our drip plans long-term to get responses.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool tactic. I mean, I'm even thinking with you out loud right now, and that there's a way with the businesses that you support. So like, I don't know, I'm sure there's National Coffee Day, and maybe one of your past clients owns coffee shops and you cut a deal with them that anybody who uses some promo code attached to your sales team gets 10% off coffee on National Coffee Day. And you kind of run that play into that person in your sphere. So lots of different ways to carve that up. Before we go deeper into this, and maybe we should have touched on this at the beginning, so my fault for not doing that. Tell the folks at home what you guys see as your conversion rate percentage on your inbound leads, just so they know the end result of doing the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so this is one of those where I'm always telling people this is one of the funnest numbers to track because everybody has a different way to track it. So for us, we see generally between a 75 and 80% response ratio on all of our leads. Response ratio, around a 20 to 25% conversion ratio to an appointment, and then a 7.7% close ratio from those leads. Now, the variables in there can be the length of time. We have leads that we keep in touch with. I think I have one convert this past year that was in there for 6 years, and we kept on keeping up with that person. So the length of time can also impact that number a little bit. There are certain years where I'm sure our closing ratio is way higher because we've been nurturing people for 3, 4, 5 years in our system.
Sure.
I think I mentioned in the digital marketing course, I've said to you before, Bill, we're like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave, man. You're a lead. Leads never die in my world. They're always good. It's that I haven't figured out their time frame, so we always keep them in our system.
Yeah. So 75-ish% you're getting 75 to 80% you're getting responses from. 20 to 25% of your inbound leads you guys are closing for appointment. 7.7% of your inbound leads you're closing to actual closings, compared to an industry standard of somewhere between 1 and 3%. So
on a good day, 1 to 3%. I was talking to several people lately. They're like 0.5%.
Sure. Yeah. And that number just keeps getting dragged down because I think, and tell me if you see this differently, I think people are finding it easier to generate top of the funnel leads. And so they're kind of flooding their non-existent system. And then by the time they get done cherry picking, they're at a 1% or lower number. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about customization. And you gave some examples of merge fields. And I know there are some fun, quirky, unique scripts that you guys use. I'm particularly thinking about the Alien script, which is my personal favorite. So maybe talk with the folks a little bit about that one, and then how those types of things spike your engagement with your incoming leads.
Well, again, it goes back to the pattern interrupt, right? So what's the unexpected play here? And typically, if you get a real estate text message, and this is the other thing I do a lot of like case studies where I'm going around looking at everybody's systems. I am in contact with a lot of the big CRM companies, and I get to see the drip campaigns they build and how they build them. And everything is just so boxed or canned, it just doesn't sound real. So one of our favorite scripts that we use is were you abducted by aliens? The key here too also, guys, is putting it in a text and an email and sending those at the same time so they see it on whatever medium they happen to be on. But were you abducted by aliens, what goes along the lines of, were you abducted by aliens? If so, let me know. I'll call NASA, I'll call the Marines. I just want to make sure I can help you along those lines. And what it does is it generates a response. And usually my favorite one that we've ever gotten was some lady sent back, LOL, yes, I'm still interested in buying a house. Right. So it ended up working and it got the response. And that's I think day 13 of our drip campaign or something on the day 12 or 13. So it's way down in our drip campaign. And it gets a really good amount of responses. And here's the other part I love about it is it's so quirky or so off the wall that it's pretty easy for me to trace back where this person converted at, because they'll say to us, oh, it's because that alien script. I can't believe y'all sent that out to us. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that actually still works. So my agents hated it at first. I'm not going to lie. They were like, we do not like this script. And then they started seeing that people respond to it and like, okay, well, maybe it's not so bad. Now we'll keep it in there.
Right. What are some other ways, and kind of putting you on the spot here, some other ways that you guys are customizing or some other things that you guys are doing differently that you think is spiking the response rate from people?
Good question. I think one of the big things that we typically do is we customize on top of our automations. So one thing I'm a big fan of is taking any data you're getting from people. So if someone signs up on your website or comes to a Facebook lead ad on a particular property, we look at that data. And then while we have a really robust automated drip plan that follows up with people, we'll take that data they give us and we'll ask a question around that data. So if you came in on 1234 Main Street, I'm going to ask you a very specific question about 1234 Main Street. Did you like the kitchen in it? What did you like best about the backyard on 1234 Main Street? Was the garage big enough on this property? And it customizes it to that person rather than being a very generic, are you looking to buy or sell a home? That's a key piece of it. The other thing, and again, you guys are gonna be shocked to hear this, video. Use video. Come on, use it every chance you get. Think about it. They're going to see your face. You can text or email it to them. Are you kidding me? Build trust, build the likability factor. Have a little script to say about you can even pre-record these, by the way, and have it go right out in your drip campaign, which is what we do. We just have it go right out.
Sure.
But you can record a little video just introducing yourself to each lead if you want to, and send that out to try and capture them as well. So I think videos are really great way to customize and be different, because there's so many agents that don't use it and they don't think about using it in their drip campaigns or to follow up with people to convert them.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's a big point. And even if looking at the automation of that, where I might do something that I might do a one take, hey, it's Bill from the such and such sales team, and I wanted you to be able to put a name with a face and see there's a real person here. And if I did that and I shot that like once per quarter ish, like along with the changing of the seasons, so I have some sort of landscape-ish type background that causes the person to think, even if it's subconsciously, causes them to think like, oh, this is really happening right now because it's springtime outside, or, you know, summertime outside, or whatever it is. And then that becomes part of the automation. I like that. Let's dig into something that connected to all of this that I'm really, really passionate about, and I know you are too, and that is speed to lead. And how important speed to lead is to conversion. I know everybody who's watching this knows that, yet drive that point home and then talk about how you guys ensure speed to lead in your world, or how you would coach someone to ensure speed to lead in their world.
Yeah, it's critical. It's critical. It's probably the number one factor is what we're finding. And it makes sense when you think about it logically, and it's easy as agents to get caught up in the day to day and just kind of say, oh, well, I'll follow with that person later on, or I'll get to them tomorrow morning. It really, the studies show you just kill your chances. I know Zillow just did a study on this, and it used to be within 5 minutes. And when they did the study, they got really granular, and it was like between 2 and 5 minutes, it dropped 60%, right? Between 2 and 5 minutes. So 120 seconds is really where you have to reach that person and convert them at a higher level. Otherwise, your chances just go down dramatically the longer it goes on. After 24 hours, you have like less than a 5% chance of converting that lead.
Sure.
And the only difference that they found was the amount of time it took you to respond to the lead. And the crazy part to me on that is 120 seconds, you can automate a lot of this stuff now with text, with video. You can have automatic voicemails go out. You can hire companies that have I know Agent Legend has drip campaigns for 5 days, different ISA companies that will follow people. Whatever you have to do, get in front of them. And for us, it's a metric of, we have a timer set inside of our system. So the CRM you use can be a really useful tool here, where they get 60 seconds. They get 60 seconds, and then the lead goes to the next person in line. Because I have 120 seconds to convert it, I'm going to give you 60 of those seconds to convert it. And then if you can't get there, it's got to go to the next person. And so it's on a round robin, and you'll just get skipped that turn if you don't answer your phone or call that person within that time frame. And it's made the response rate of the agents go way up, because now they're more in tune with, okay, this lead is actually going to go away. And then for us, we just inspect it on a weekly basis. Every week with our one-on-ones, we look at numbers, look at how many leads they have. Are they responding in a fast enough manner? All that good stuff is tracked internally. The other thing here I would push on a little bit too, Bill, is really for everyone to think about top of this video. We talked about top of the funnel. The beauty of these leads, and what you're really underestimating if you're saying that there's a low conversion rate, is that when they come in as a lead into your world, you generated that lead. They're not going to 3 different agents. They're not going to multiple people competing for that person. You are the only person competing at that moment in time. So I really, really look at people and go, you don't realize the opportunity you have in that first 120 seconds. Because think about this logically, the person, where are they at when they come in as a lead? They're typically in front of their phone. They're in front of this thing, right? That's how they came in. So if you call them and text them, guess what's going to light up in front of their face? If you call, text, email, and send a video in the first 120 seconds, or they're going to say, I better talk to this person. There's going to be like a bill collector. They're never going to leave me alone, right? So that's where I look at it. And I think, you're the only one in competition at that point. Beyond that window, what happens is they start browsing other sites. They start looking at other ads, and they're obviously willing to sign up on a service because they signed up on your ad. So that means they're willing to sign up on other ads. Can you cut that off sooner than later? And the faster you get there and have that conversation, build that relationship, build the rapport, the better chance you have of converting that lead, because they're not going to go browse other sites now, because now you can tell them, stay on my site. It's the best possible site in the world. And you're catching them at the top of the funnel where you're not in competition with other agents. So I think it's one of the critical things is to get there as fast as possible, because it's like that blue ocean strategy. You're the only agent there at that moment in time. Capitalize on it. take that 120 seconds and say, you know what, it's me against me right now. I just need to get this lead and convert this person. And then from there, the sequence, the automated follow-up, the drip campaigns will keep them in your world so they don't go out and look at other websites, or they sign up on other services and work with other agents. So to me, the opportunity is immense. Is it more work? Yes. Can you automate a lot of it? Absolutely. But the opportunity is just crazy compared to every other lead source out there.
Sure. Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. We'll go a few more minutes on this before we change gears into the reviews piece. So this came up on a coaching call earlier this week. A team that we work with has gotten really good recently at turning the crank and making stuff come in the top of the funnel. And the question inevitably came up, what do I do to increase the conversion rate? And my first question is always going to go to look at what you just described is, well, what's our contact ratio? So first of all, before we get to what do they convert to as a buyer sold, what's our contact ratio for that lead? And that number was pretty low. And I said, well, with that number being pretty low, what's our speed to lead number? And are we tracking that? And this is inevitably where the initial breakdown that we usually see is that time that it takes the system and the agent to get to the lead is abysmally slow. And what we all know is if you want to get more of something, then create a hyper focus on it for a window of time. So with this particular team, we're about to launch a speed to lead contest. And for 30 days, that's all we're going to focus on with their buyer lead team, or with their buyer agent team, is how fast can they get to the leads. And then there's going to be a first prize, a second prize, and a third prize. And all we're going to talk about within that team for 30 days, and that little niche of it at least, is how fast are we getting to the leads, and with the idea of building that muscle. So for those of you who are watching this and you're thinking, well, I'm generating leads and I'm not sure why my conversion is, start at the top, see how fast you're getting there, and then focus on what your system is and what you're saying, and then just follow the rabbit trail all the way to the bottom. And you will inevitably find some holes there, and just start working on them sequentially.
Yeah. Well, the other side of this too, if I want to put a little bug in everyone's ear on this too, we really thought the conversion ratio or the breakout of our leads was about 40% sellers, 60% buyers. And then we started adding in additional layers and data points for us to track. And guess what we found? 65% of our leads that came in are actually sellers. So if you're hurting for listings right now, go hunt those leads. And here's the thing, we started out asking the question of what's the intent with every single person that comes in? What's the intent at the end of it? And part of this is saying that funnel process, the conversations you're having, I'm willing to bet right now that a lot of people have buyer drip campaigns in place, and they're speaking the wrong thing to that particular lead, because that lead is actually a seller, right? So if 6 or 7 out of 10 of every one of your leads that come in actually has a home to sell before they can buy, and all you're sending them is information about buying, you're not talking to them about anything they're interested in right now. Because really in their mind, they have a barrier before they can start looking at actually buying a home, which is the house they have to sell. So I would encourage you to look at your drip campaigns you have in place. And if it's just buyer information or paraphernalia, say, okay, how can we work listing conversation in here as well? How can we give them information about how to stage a home? How can we give them information about our customized marketing plan to help them sell a home? And what you'll find is you may spark conversations that you're missing right now, because again, you're having the wrong conversation at the wrong time with that particular lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Such a huge point. And that question comes up a lot. Like, what do I do to go generate more listings? And one of the counterintuitive answers to that is look at your buyer leads and make sure you're digging in on that first. And all we're doing here is we're deconstructing a really common thought process. Like if you or I or anyone watching this were thinking that we might want to move, probably the first thing we would do would be to look at what's on the market right now. Like, let me see what's out there. Let me see what's going on. Let me see if anything piques my interest or what prices are looking like. And then all of a sudden I find myself registering somewhere, and lo and behold, I have a house to sell first. So I think you guys are doing a really smart move and working through that. Okay, before we transition to talk about reviews and getting them and leveraging them, anything else you want to say on the automation or customization of lead follow-up?
Did you just make a new word up? That was impressive.
I did, yeah. I mean, I did.
Tell Debbie to add it to the dictionary.
Sure.
Overall, I think that now we hit everything on the head there. I think that when you think of automation too, there's so many more levels to this. And I know we've talked about possibly working some of this into the next round of digital marketing for everyone. But there's so many levels to automation. So there's artificial intelligence bots. So there's systems out there that I absolutely adore right now that are doing a fantastic job because they embody natural language text. There's ways to set it up that people are actually scheduling times to talk to you through automated online booking calendar systems that find openings on your calendar to have conversations with you. So there's ways to set all this up and really automate your business from soup to nuts. And that's kind of like the dream in my head of soup to nuts. How do I start with this, lead, this prospect, this advertising piece, and then move them all the way down to an actual signed agreement with my team, and then we'll close them out and get them in a house or list their property and sell it. So I like to think about that all the time. There's so many ways to do it too. So this was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many different tools and systems that you can plug in. The main thing to remember on automation is it all connected so that it all makes sense? And is there that flow? Think of like inflows and outflows. So sometimes I think of water flowing through things. And if you have a main hub of water and then you have little lakes out here, tributaries, are they feeding back into that main lake? Is it feeding them? How's that all connected? So that's always been a good visual for me when I'm thinking about my systems. How are they all connected? There's a lot more there you can do too to make it really, really snazzy down the road. But baseline, start, get your drip campaigns in order and make sure those are automated and be fast on your responses.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think we both see the day in the not too distant future where there's a really intelligently programmed messenger bot that does a lot of this heavy lifting for us. And that already exists in other spaces, and it's starting to show up a little bit now. I think there's massive, massive opportunity there.
Yeah, we're playing with one of those right now. Whew. It's a little creepy because it's like it's having a real life conversation, and it's machine language doing it, and at the same time you're going, holy cow! It's asking some really good questions and engaging leads in a very high manner. So yeah, those are definitely, I think those are going to be the next probably 12 to 18 months. You're going to see those show up heavy-handedly in our market.
Right. I would agree with that. All right, cool. So let's put a flag in the ground on that, and let's change gears and talk about reviews. And as you and I were prepping for this, you sort of broke it out in two parts. So talking about getting them, and then talking about leveraging them for social proof. So where would you like to start there?
Getting them's pretty straightforward. And I love to hear your opinion on this too, Bill. For us, it's you got to ask for them. I know it's crazy, right? We have to ask for the review. No, seriously, I think of priming my people to get reviews. So a lot of times you got to think, again, going back to the timing conversation, just like we're looking at the funnel for the leads, it's all about the timing of the ask on this. So a lot of times we tend to ask for a review at the closing table or a couple of days after closing. And what are your clients typically doing? They're moving, right? They're moving. So they got all this stuff going on, and you send them a thing saying, hey, do you mind sending me a review? And they're like, what the heck, man, I don't have time to do this. Or they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Once I'm done moving, I'll do it. So we're big on timing it around all of that. And then again, I'm always talking about kind of just the general level of noise in people's worlds. So thinking about how can we cut through that? And the best way we can do it is automate the touch points to follow up with them. So we usually start priming our people that we're going to ask for a review the very first time we talk to them, because we're going to say something along the lines of, we have a very high standard for this team, and we expect to give you the best customer experience possible. And when we're all done and we get to the finish line and we're high-fiving and having a good time, I'm going to ask you how I did. And all I ask is that you just do a simple review for the team. Is that something you'd be willing to do? They typically will say yes to that. Again, we're just priming them through the whole process. Every time we have a milestone, and this is how my brain works, by the way, I'm always looking for milestones in the process. And at that milestone, we're going to tell them the next steps. And then again, we're going to remind them we have the highest expectations of our team in terms of customer experience. At the end of all this, I'm going to ask you for a review if you don't mind filling it out for us at that when we're all said and done. So always priming throughout the process to ask for that review is a big piece of it, because by the time you get to the end of it, we've had clients come in and say, hey, weren't we supposed to get a review? Oh, absolutely. Thank you for doing that.
Right.
And then I think agents tend to complicate the way they do this, almost to justify, again, them not doing it. So it's simply for us, we have internal reviews for the team that we get on a Google form. And then externally, because one thing you don't want to do is get a service that syndicates the reviews out, because those places that get reviewed on, it gets flagged as spam, and typically it won't show up. So if you have one service that says they'll give you a Yelp review, a Facebook review, and it'll syndicate it to all those places, I've just seen too much where it gets flagged and then it doesn't show up. So I wouldn't recommend that. So pick the places you think your clients are going to go to research you. That's the number one thing. Think about where they're going to research you at. For us, it's typically our social media, Yelp, our big ones, Google reviews. Facebook's our biggest one that we get reviews on. And we always ask them to just write, what they experienced with us, how was their time with us. And we'll send that in a text message and we'll send that in an email with a link. And we'll do it at usually, I would say, 7 to 10 days after closing. Again, we've reminded them continually that we're going to ask for this review. So when it comes, it's not a surprise, they're expecting it. And then internally, we have an internal team review that rates everybody on the team, from team leader down to our admin, down to all of our vendors get rated. So I can see if there's any hiccups there. And we ask questions in there for them to tell us what we could do better in our business, things of that nature. So we have an internal review, and then we have external reviews. And if you take it a step further, because I'm obsessed with like good data, if we don't win a presentation, like a listing or a buyer presentation, we send them a review too. I want to know what we did wrong so I can get it right the next time. So we're actually getting reviews on that as well to help better our agents and our service going forward. But just for client reviews, just gathering them, just ask, prime them throughout the process, and then ask at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. A couple other things that we have seen to work well is let's say that you're in a position where you don't really have a lot of reviews yet. You've got a ton of past clients and you got a ton of raving fans, and people really want to sing your praises. Is running a contest around something like that. And so you promote the contest to your database, you promote the contest on your social media channels, and you dangle a prize out there, and you say something to the effect of, between now and some date, 2 weeks in the future, we're running a contest for a giveaway of this thing. And whatever the thing is something that's going to make someone stop in their tracks. Like I absolutely despise lame prizes in contests. And you'll know if it's lame or not, because if you wouldn't want it, then it's lame. So the way to deconstruct the prize is to think about it. Is this cool enough that it would stop me in my tracks? Or is it valuable or a big enough deal that if I see this in my feed or I see this in my email inbox, that I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to do what Ben asked me to do and give a review to the team. Then you have the right prize. And is everybody going to do it? No. Is it a great way to spike it? Yes. So you can run it as a contest. The other thing we've seen some of you do, which I think is brilliant, is when you do a live event, which hopefully we'll be able to get back to doing those client parties and stuff like that, is have a separate drawing for people who give you reviews. So there's maybe like a high top table over in the corner with a little special drawing and a sign and a computer or a tablet and a dedicated team member, or maybe you rotate team members on shifts through that, where folks can go over and give you a review on whatever the platform is. And by them doing that at your event, they get entered into that special drawing. So those are creative ways to go spike it. And you might end up with 20, 30, 50 reviews out of nowhere just by running some sort of play like that. So get creative on how you're going to dump gas on the fire if you feel like you're playing from behind. All right, so now we have the reviews, Ben. What the heck do we do with them?
Well, it's kind of like singing from a mountaintop, right? You want to display those things loud and proud. I like thinking of what's the best way to get somebody. Or I think about my experience whenever I go on Amazon to buy a product. I don't know about everyone else. I'm first of all, I'm very fast paced, so I don't really have a lot of patience to read all the product description. I go straight to the reviews and I start reading what was their experience with this product. Is it going to be everything I think it's going to be? And what the other thing you're filtering through, and here's a little thing to think about. If you have a bad client review, it's not the end of the world. And that's because typically when I'm browsing products, and I think everybody will do this, we look through the good ones, and then we also seek out some of the bad ones because we want to see the other end of the spectrum. And usually it's with that note of, okay, this person was just being ridiculous, or, they're not being super serious about it. But I'm really looking for both ends of the spectrum, because I know some people are going to sing the praises and some people are just never going to be happy. And I know the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? And that's what I'm looking for. So same thing with your reviews, wherever you post them at, wherever you have them hosted at, don't be afraid of a bad review or two. I think it actually lends legitimacy to your online platform. And I know a lot of people freak out, especially in the real estate industry. But when you go on Amazon and you buy a product and it's at a 4.9 star reviews, that means there's some 1-star reviews in there, right? So it's not the world's greatest product to everybody, but it's a great product to a lot of people that actually like it. So I always think about that when it comes to online reviews. Use these on your any of your paraphernalia for your marketing pieces on your website. Anytime you're trying to convert a lead, I think in the drip campaign conversation, this is really powerful, right? I don't see agents doing this. I think it's kind of a missed opportunity. Take the leads that talk about how great you are from someone else and work that into your drip campaigns. Here's an experience, tell the story around it too, right? That's a beautiful thing to do, is take somebody's review, tell the story, and then let them present it in their own words. And then you send that out as a piece of your drip campaign. It's a piece of content, again, that's written about how great you are or what a good job you did. And it's a great follow-up piece for people, and it's social proof. So it's this concept of social proof. People are more likely to want to work with you or use you if they see other people having good experiences with you. So going back to the automation piece, you can just build this right into your email drip campaigns or your text drip campaigns. Say, hey, check out this story about this family. We helped buy this house. And if you're in real estate for any period of time, I don't care, you have some cool stories about how you overcame hurdles in the deal, how you helped keep the transaction together, how you were the hero in the 11th hour. Ask your clients to tell that story, right? And then use that in your advertising as well as your branding and your marketing. I think we get so narrow focused that a review just goes on Yelp or it just goes on Facebook. And you don't think, how can I expand this into other arenas? Again, thinking of pillar content, which we've talked about several times, this is a piece of pillar content to me. I'm going to use it on my social media to post out there as a post on my social media to show people a review. I'm going to post it use it in my drip campaigns. It's going to go on my main page. It's going to go on my website. So this one piece of content that came from an outside source, which is social proof, goes in all these different places. So get creative again in how you're going to use it, because it's a really powerful piece of a conversion process when you're thinking of how do you take a person who is a cold prospect and turning them into a client. Part of that is social validation, that everything you're telling them, because remember, they're just hearing your voice. When they hear the same thing from someone else, it's so much more powerful and adds a lot of weight to what you're saying.
Right. Absolutely. I think you make a really good point on also, I mean, all those are great points. I think you make a really good point on the negative review and the being okay with occasionally that coming up, because rational people understand that there are crazy people in the world. And when you've got 50 or 100 or hundreds of really strong reviews, you got one or two outliers, I think they expect that. And I think it also underscores how you go about responding to the negative review, both publicly and privately. So sometimes we'll see agents get really combative and defensive on that, like you're somehow miraculously going to change the opinion of the 1-star review. It's not going to happen, people. Just take a deep breath, take the high road, be diplomatic, and then all of the normal people out there in the world will see you taking the high road, and then it will resonate with them. Now, what you do privately is a different story. However, the way you address that publicly, I think, is really important. And you see some of the best customer service companies on the planet, that great customer service reputation gets built in times when customers are not happy. So use that as an opportunity to go the extra mile and to flex your customer service muscle. All right, Ben, anything else before we wrap up on the reviews piece?
I think we hit the nail on the head. Don't be afraid to ask for them, go out and get them, and then use them after you get them. I mean, just you need to find ways to work this in. It's built in, pre-built content for you, really. And just ask the right questions around it, and then actually implement the stuff that people tell you too. You'll get some good suggestions if you ask questions.
Cool. I'm going to look real quick. So maybe you have a parting thought to share with them. I'm going to look real quick to see if we have any questions from the live stream here. And if we do, we'll address them. And if not, we will scoot on out of here.
Yeah. So when you think of automation, don't just think about lead conversion too, guys. Think about your lead generation effort. So there's tools and systems out there now that can automatically send direct mail for you. And it does it based on Facebook pixels built into your website. And if someone says, yes, I'll let you know my location with this one particular service, it'll actually, you can automate a pre-written out. And they actually have bots now that handwrite the cards. It'll send them a card automatically based on their location futures that they say yes to from a Facebook campaign. So you can really go deep on FSBOs, expireds, and your lead generation efforts, and not just the lead conversion side of it as well. So think outside the box on that, and don't be afraid to try new things, because some of those things are pretty cool and they work pretty well too. The response rate is pretty interesting. So think of it in all facets. And I also think internally inside of your business, transaction coordination, listing coordination, where can you automate? Where can you get rid of inefficiency in a system? Where can you let something else pick up the heavy work for you? And then the last thing, Bill, because agents tend to free up time and then they go, what, now that I have all this free time, I'm going to go to Fiji. It's like, hold on, cowboy, free up your time and then go use that freed up time for other things that are money making or business building activities.
And maybe you could do those in Fiji. Who knows?
You could. Yeah. Love it. Right.
Right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Ben. As always, great work today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you happen to watch the recorded version of this and you have some questions you'd like for us to address, either in the comments or in a future session, please go ahead and drop them below. And I'll put some comments. You can check out the digital marketing course that Ben wrote, the buyer skills course that Debbie and I wrote, and we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
See ya.